What's the problem?
Hello and welcome to Casio Chaos Theory, and welcome to this video where we are going to investigate the Casiotone models with the now famous Frog preset tone used in the Michael Jackson song Thriller from the album of the same name. This Casiotone revelation recently came to light back in August 2023 thanks to the videos by Anthony Maranelli, who worked on the actual Thriller recordings as a synth programmer. In the breakdown part of the title song, there is a mysterious and unique sound on top of the bass line that had made me wondering what synthesizer could have produced it. The Dr. Mix channel has made a number of videos where he attempted to recreate many of the sounds used in Thriller, and even though he managed to find a sound that came close to this mystery frog tone, the synth he used was the polar opposite of the humble little home keyboard that was actually used on the recording. Meanwhile, Anthony Maranelli knew what synth produced the bass line because he programmed it, but he was not there when the frog part was added. To solve this mystery, a search was made to try and find the source of this frog sound, and it made fascinating viewing as Anthony contacted many of his colleagues who had also worked on Thriller, and he also got together with Dr. Mix to see how close the Doctor actually got to recreating the sounds used in this iconic recording. What I can hopefully add to all this, being a Casio keyboard enthusiast channel, is to find out what Casiotone models can give you this unique frog tone, because there's actually a number of them. So let's have a recap of the Anthony Maranelli and Dr. Mix videos to see the story of the frog bass search, and I'll put links to the full videos in the description box down below for you to check out. And then I will do my own search and deep diving of those early Casiotone models, so that we can 100% establish which models have the frog preset. That way, for all of you that absolutely must have the frog sound in your life, you'll know where to find it. Back in May 2018, Dr. Mix released a video where he recreated the bass sound used in Thriller.
Hi and welcome to Dr. Mix. On this video I'm going to show you how to recreate the bass of Michael Jackson's Thriller using the original instrument, the Mini Moog.
First off, though the Mini Moog can come close to the bass sound in Thriller, it wasn't a Moog that was actually used.
There's also another synth that goes right there.
Dr. Mix has correctly identified a second sound being used on top of the main bass part. He then set out to recreate this sound in a second video, where he covered the sounds of the additional synths and organs used in the track.
You can hear it very well. That thing. So I have been working that out, and it turns out it's this synth again.
Actually, no, it wasn't a Jupiter 8, but carry on anyway.
At its most basic is a simple square wave.
Now that's interesting that he used a square wave, because a number of early Casios generated their sound using mixed multipulse square waves, though I'm not entirely sure of the exact waveforms that were used in Casio's vowel consonant keyboards, but there could possibly be some square waves involved.
That's all there is to it.
Good attempt, but not a Jupiter 8. Now, fast forward a few years, and Dr. Mix got to meet with Anthony Maranelli, the synth programmer of the original bass sound on Thriller. After Dr. Mix showed Anthony how he got a similar sound with the Mini Moog, Anthony explains that the articulation and legato of the part being played wouldn't be possible with the Moog because of its single trigger envelope.
But there is this problem now.
That's the biggest problem.
That's the biggest problem.
And what is that problem?
The problem is that you don't get re-triggered because this is like a series of resistors, doesn't
Yeah,
it?
it's a single trigger instrument.
Single trigger. That's
And the 2600 can be either. You can set it to single trigger mode or multi-trigger mode. And all it means is that you can play legato on the 2600 and you can't really play legato on a mini mode.
So then
You got a problem because this line needs to be articulated very legato and then pop
Right.
the last one.
Exactly.
Da, 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 pop.
So how did you actually do it then?
I use an ARP 2600.
Can you please show us?
Dr. Mix then revisits the sound and gets Anthony's opinion on how it was made.
And there is another thing that we were talking about with bass. So that sound, I imitated it using the Jupiter 8. It's such an interrupting sound, or probably on an octave like very fast, and it goes. But turns out it's not it. It's a synthesizer.
Yeah, my understanding is the Casio CT401 that Michael brought, was like at the house, and he liked the frog sound. It's a preset.
Poor Dr. Mix. The bass line didn't come from a Mini Moog, and the sound didn't come from a Jupiter 8. Though, to be fair, the sounds he got did come very close to those on the original recording. At this point in time, Anthony himself wasn't 100% sure what keyboard model the frog sound came from, but over a two-part video, he was able to track it down. Let's recap his quest to find the source of the Michael Jackson frog bass. Anthony had asked around to try and identify what synth produced the frog sound, and he discovered that it was a Casiotone model that had a preset tone called Frog. This initially led him to a Casiotone 401, an early model that did indeed include Frog among its preset tones.
So I have an early instrument here. It's called a Casio 401. And I'm going to let you hear this sound and you tell me what you think. It sounds pretty close to the frog sound.
He then spoke with Stephen Ray, who was assistant to Quincy Jones, the producer of the Thriller album, to see if he could shed any further light on the infamous frog sound, and also to find out who actually played it.
Okay, so who played it?
It was Greg's left hand or right hand.
So
Anthony then suggests that the Casiotone might have come from Quincy Jones's house, and he also stated that there were other Casiotone models with the frog preset. And though the frog sound of the Casiotone 401 was certainly very close to the sound used on the recording, he still wanted to search out some of the other 1982 or earlier Casiotone models that might also have the frog sound as a preset. This is because after talking with Stephen and others, it was thought that the Casiotone keyboard used was smaller than the 401 he found, and also was thought to be white in color.
this Casio keyboard, something similar to this, came from Quincy's house. There's other Casio keyboards that have frog sounds on them, a couple of other ones, and I'm looking for ones right from that vintage. But clearly this one has a very similar frog sound, and I don't think you could really tell the difference.
After donning his detective cap, and with some more searching, Anthony managed to identify the exact frog sound Casiotone model that was used on Thriller.
Hi, I'm Anthony Maranelli, and I'm here as part of the continuation search to find the frog sound that's on Michael Jackson's Thriller. I'm going to be speaking to a couple of friends that were at the recording session, and we have proof positive that the frog sound, also known as Froggy, was performed on this Casio MT60.
Success! Anthony appears to have found it. He then shows how it was identified after talking with some of the people who were involved in the recording and production of the song. First off, he has another chat with Quincy Jones's assistant, Stephen Ray, and shows him the MT60.
Hi, Steven.
Hey.
How's it going? So I want to show you another keyboard that kind of fits the bill of what you said and what Matt said.
Oh my goodness, there it is.
Is that it?
There it is. Yeah.
Let me ID it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah?
Yep. Remember I was saying it was something that I could just pick up. I remember it being small, and I was always moving stuff around at Quincy Studio, but that was the one that we brought to the studio.
Stephen's recollection of it being small and portable was key to helping narrow it down to the correct model, and I'll explain the significance of that later on in this video.
Can you see that?
Oh yeah, Frog 13.
You see it right there? And it's
Casiotone, yep.
Casiotone MT60.
That's it, man.
You know,
Let me hear it. There you go.
you can hear it well. So we're good. We found it.
So great. We found it.
Anthony also spoke with Matt Forger, who worked on Thriller as an assistant engineer, and incredibly, Matt still had some vital documentation with regards to the frog sound.
All right. Looks good. Hi, Matt.
Yeah, that's the one.
There we go.
Okay, this is what I've got. I just want to see if you can see the.
Oh, yeah. I can see it great. It says Froggy. And that, what does it say down below there?
It says Casio, and below that it says Greg.
Casio Greg, and that's on track 14. Right next to the claps, and it says Casio and Greg, which is Greg Fillinganes, stands for Greg Fillinganes, who played the sound.
That recording sheet showed that on track 14 of the Thriller multi-track tape, there was a Casio using the Frog preset, and that it was played by Greg Fillinganes. And to be certain, Anthony showed Matt the white MT60.
But we do know that it was on this white Casio.
You have the white Casio, right?
Yes. It looks like I have to go this way, and then you're going to be able to see it.
Frog, number 13.
There it is.
Yeah.
So there we go, and then I'm going to pull back and play it.
Yeah. That's it.
The sound was on a couple of Casio models, but this is the only white one that's little, and it came out in the same year, 1982.
Great detective work there by Anthony. Thanks to Stephen Ray, he established that it was a small portable keyboard, and thanks to Matt Forger, he could see the actual studio multi-track recording chart showing that it was a Casio using the Frog sound, and that it was played by Greg Fillinganes. Of course, that meant that Anthony needed to speak with Greg to get his take on the Casiotone Frog mystery.
Hey,
Okay.
hey, Greg.
Let's go.
Hey, do you have a minute to confirm the Frog sound keyboard from that you played on Thriller?
I have a minute to confirm.
I mean, it's 40 years later, right? And you're getting the phone call now.
Yeah, well, this is how it happens.
It just flies in. So let me show you this keyboard.
Okay. Yeah. Hello. Hello.
Yeah?
Yes. Yeah.
And then
Okay.
I'm zeroing in on the, let me see.
Oh, it's the Casiotone.
And you can see that, right? And then see where it says Frog?
I see where it says Frog.
Okay, there you go. And
That would be it.
you did it.
I did it. It was that low C sharp. I was all over it.
And just to round up one last piece of the puzzle, who owned or brought the Casiotone MT60 into the studio, Anthony asked Greg for his thoughts.
And do you remember anything about how this keyboard turned up at Westlake on Thriller?
No. I don't know if it was a situation where, it belonged to James Ingram and he brought it down.
Well, that's fantastic. I think Stephen, he's pretty solid that it was Quincy's. That Quincy had this Casio, this cream-colored one, and he also had the other one, the brown one.
That's also very possible.
Right.
See, I cannot believe Stephen's memory. It's just...
Well, it was over 40 years ago, so Greg can be forgiven for not remembering exactly where the Casiotone came from. As being a session keyboard player, he would often be asked to play whatever keyboard was currently set up in the studio. Though with Stephen Ray being Quincy Jones's assistant, as well as having to move stuff around for him, I think his recollection of it belonging to Quincy is very likely correct. Well, who knew that it was legendary producer Quincy Jones that brought in a little white Casiotone keyboard that ended up being used on the biggest selling album of all time? My turn now to do some detective work, because the MT60 used to provide the frog sound on Thriller is actually quite a rare model and is not that easy to find. Plus, with everyone now knowing that it was used on Thriller, there's a good chance prices could shoot up. You've only got to see prices being asked for the Mattel BG's toy keyboard, famously used by Kraftwerk on their Pocket Calculator track, to see what happens when the public gets wind of a famous artist or band using an otherwise fairly low-level oddball instrument. On top of that, vintage Casio and Casiotone keyboards have become quite collectible, and prices for them have been steadily rising over the years. With the revelation of the Thriller Frog sound, prices of the MT60 are likely to increase even more. However, all is not lost, because there are actually a number of Casiotone models that come with the Frog preset, and by finding out what LSI tone generator is used in them, you too can have the exact same Thriller Frog sound, even if it's not an MT60 model. Thriller was recorded between April and November of 1982. Therefore, the Casio keyboard models that could potentially have the Frog preset would be those that were available during this era, and possibly a little later. Of note, Casio had only been producing home keyboards since the end of 1980, so the number of models that might have the Frog sound is not actually that many. Also note that I am not including any of the VL or PT models, because they used a sound generation based on mixed multipulse square waves, whereas the MT60 and most other polyphonic early Casio models used a sound generation known as vowel consonant synthesis. Using a variety of sources online, archived magazine articles, and also from looking at advert dates, I've managed to come up with a list of polyphonic Casio keyboards in date order of release up to 1983 or so. I think it includes all the major models, though it's possible that I might have missed one or two. I've also identified the tone generator LSIs used in each model that will help us to group them into their respective hardware families. Straight away, we can see some clear groupings that share a common NEC LSI tone generator, and we also know, thanks to Anthony Maranelli's videos, that the 401 and MT60 models have the Frog preset. We can go through this list and take off a number of models. The 1980 TIR-01 using the NEC D771 and D772, the only model to use these LSIs, does not have a Frog sound among its presets, and I can't find any information as to whether it has any other presets available when modified. The same applies to its successor, the 1981 TIR-02 that used the NEC D788 and 789, also the only Casio model to use these LSIs, and again the Frog tone is not in its presets. I'm also taking off the 1981 MT30 and the MT40 that use the NEC D775, because looking at their tone list, this LSI doesn't have the Frog preset and it doesn't appear to be available even if modified. Furthermore, we can take off the 1981 to 1982, 701, 601, 501, 1000p, and MT70 models that use the NEC D7802 LSI, because these all use a form of tone generation based on digital sine waves, a completely different sound synthesis to the one used in the vowel consonant Casios that produce the Frog tone. The same applies to the MT45 that, though sharing an identical case and control layout with the MT60 Frog model, uses a totally different Hitachi HD44140 LSI and cannot produce the Frog tone. And lastly, we can remove the NEC D931 models, the MT65, MT68, CT405, CT410V, MT400V, and some related other models, because though this LSI is closely numbered to the D990 used in the MT60, none of these models have a Frog preset, nor does it appear to be available when modified. This now leaves us with a new list showing two distinct families of Casio keyboards that have the unique Frog preset tone on board. Anthony has already shown us that the 401 and MT60 models have the Frog preset, and we can also add the 301 and M10 to the 401 family, as they all use the NEC D773 LSI. Furthermore, we can add the 403 and 101 to the MT60 family, as they all use the NEC D990 LSI. For the M10, note that the Frog preset is only available if you modify it, because as standard, the M10 comes with a meager 4 preset tones, though its hardware is capable of providing much more. I found this out thanks to Robin Whittle's excellent guide showing how to modify those early Casio keyboards, including how to get many extra tones, including Frog. I'll put a link in the description box below for anyone that would like to access his PDF document. Of note is that the 301 and 401 models using the same NEC D773 LSI found in the M10 are also capable of producing more tones when modified than what is accessible from the front panel. For some strange reason, Casio decided not to allow access to all of them. As we now all know, the MT60 has been identified as the keyboard used on the Thriller recording, and that it uses the same NEC D990 LSI as found in the 403 and 101 models, with the 403 and 101 having the exact same 25 preset tones as the MT60, including the number 13 Frog preset. And despite looking completely different, the 403 is identical in terms of features to the MT60, and is for all intents and purposes a full-size keys version of the MT60 in a wooden case. Meanwhile, the 101 is quite simply a 403 minus the rhythms and accompaniment section. Therefore, with the MT60 being identified as the mystery Thriller Frog keyboard, we have discovered that you can also get the exact same Frog sound from the 403 and 101 models. And though the M10 and 301 and 401 use the earlier NEC D773 LSI, it's likely that the D990 LSI found in the MT60, 403 and 101 is an evolution of the earlier D773. And as Anthony stated in this video, when he compared a 401 with an MT60, they sounded pretty much the same. Also, the significance of Stephen Ray remembering the Thriller Frog keyboard being small enough to easily pick up helped pinpoint the exact model, because the MT60 is the only mini-keys Casiotone with the Frog preset available as standard. All the other Casiotone Frog models were full-sized, plus quite bulky and heavy. Let's have a quick look at prices online, and for this I'm going to use the USA Reverb sold listings and also USA eBay completed listings to see what the current market rates are for these Frog Casiotones models. Starting off with a 100% guaranteed Thriller Frog Casiotones, let's check out the MT60. Reverb is showing 6 hits, but 3 of those are MT600s, a different model, leaving only 3 recently sold. And 2 appear to be the same listing, one probably a relisting, with an initial price of $320, then dropping to $285. And there's also one that sold for $157, a pretty good deal. On eBay, just one came up as a completed listing for $200 with free shipping. This does indicate that the MT60 is indeed quite a rare model, and currently fetches about $200 or so on average. Let's try a 101 that will give you the exact same 25 tones, but no rhythms or accompaniment. On Reverb, full sold listings came up, with prices ranging from $175 to $279, and on eBay only 2 listings came up, around $75 to $80, though one had shipping costs of $100 on top of that. Interesting that Reverb prices are almost in the same range as the MT60 that comes with more features, but it does look that eBay might get you a better deal on a 101. Now let's look at the 403, a model with an identical feature set to the MT60. Reverb comes up with 16 sold listings, and the 10 we can see here have prices ranging from a surprisingly low $56, though the next one up sold for $175, going all the way up to a high of $402. Checking eBay shows only one completed listing selling for $124, though that one sold in the UK. If we check active listings, there's 5 currently on offer, with the lowest price of $160, increasing to $250, $325, $350, and onto a high of $480. I'd say that the average price for a 403 is around $300 or so. Let's move on to the 99% guaranteed Frog models that use a different LSI, though they still come with a very similar, if not identical sounding, Frog preset. Starting off with the 301, Reverb shows no sold listings, and the two Casiotones you see there are actually a 401 and 701 that had 301 in the item description, causing a false hit. I checked for an active listing and did find one being offered at $400. I checked eBay completed listings and that also gave no hits, though someone did get a really good deal on a 701 for only $79 with just $11.50 shipping. That's surprisingly low for one of those. Out of interest, I checked eBay current listing, and there's two on offer, one at $299 and the other at $495. Quite pricey for these. Next up is the 401, the first Casiotone keyboard with auto accompaniment, and Reverb sold listings are showing us, holy crap, how much? One of these sold for $1,462? Well, okay, that one does seem to be an exception, as the next highest sold price was $629, followed by $500. There's a very low $230 sold listing, though it's advertised as poor condition. Otherwise, prices seem to be averaging around $400 for the 401. There we look on eBay. Oh, the only completed 401 listing is for an owner's manual, so let's have a quick look at current listings and just the one available for $489, though that's in the UK. It certainly seems that the 401 is rather expensive compared with the other models. Lastly, let's check out the M10. Reverb shows just a single sold listing at $115, and that also includes free shipping. Let's hop onto eBay and see what that shows us. 6 hits, 3 of which were actual M10 keyboards, and only 2 that actually sold, one for $70 and another sold for $40. So it appears that the M10 is also quite rare, but is by far the most affordable of the Frog models. It's important to remember that the Thriller Casiotone Frog sound is layered on top of a powerful ARP 2600 semi-modular synthesizer that is actually providing the bassline throughout the whole song. As you saw with my recreation of the part, I used my CZ101 that kind of works well enough in its own phase distortion way, together with the Frog sound. Ultimately, the Casiotone Frog sound is a secret sauce on top of the original ARP bass for that one note in the breakdown of the song, and you could probably get a similar sound with other keyboards or synths, as we saw Dr. Mix do when he reconstructed the sound with the Jupiter 8. But if you still want the guaranteed 100% authentic Casiotone Frog sound as used on Thriller, get yourself a 101, 403 or MT60. And if you want a 99% guaranteed authentic Thriller Frog sound, get yourself a 301 or 401. And if you don't mind diving in with a soldering iron and adding extra switches, get yourself an M10. Also bear in mind that the MT60 and 403 are superior and much more affordable compared with the 301 and 401 models, as the MT60 and 403 come with more features, more tones, and the 100% authentic Thriller Frog sound. The 101 model lacks the rhythm and accompaniment section of the 403 and MT60, but shares their greater number and later tone set that of course includes the Thriller Frog preset. The M10 could be a bargain, but only if you're willing to and have the skills to modify it. Therefore, I'd strongly recommend seeking out the plentiful and affordable 403 or the MT60 if you can find one for sale, both of which have gorgeous analog drums and also an auto accompaniment section. If you don't want or need drums or rhythms, the 101 can give you the 100% Thriller Frog preset at an affordable price. I also feel that 301 and 401 are currently way too expensive compared with the MT60, 403 and 101, and they are actually earlier models with less features, plus they don't come with the NEC D990 LSI that is found in the MT60, 101 and 403 for that guaranteed authentic Thriller Frog tone. But if you do find a 301 or 401 at a bargain price, and by that I mean less than an MT60 or 403, then they could still be worth snapping up. And that brings us to the end of this Casiotone Frog sound voyage of discovery. I hope you found this video interesting and informative, and if you did, please don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons, and also ring the bell so that you are notified when new content is uploaded. Looks like someone upgraded the bell without telling me. Oh, and remember, keep it Casio.